The hall of the Galactic Council was built to impress and intimidate. It floated at the center of a vast artificial star, wrapped in light and drifting banners that showed the symbols of hundreds of species. The air shimmered with controlled gravity fields and quiet energy. Every envoy present understood that this place was designed to remind them how small they were compared to the power of the Galactic Empire. Alex Carter stood near the human delegation table, hands relaxed at his sides. He was not tall by galactic standards, and he wore no ceremonial armor or glowing insignia. His suit was simple, dark, and practical. To many watching from across the chamber, he looked out of place, like a clerk who had wandered into the wrong meeting. The room slowly grew silent as the Imperial Herald took the central platform. The Herald was tall and narrow, with metallic skin that reflected the council lights. Its voice was amplified and layered with harmonic tones, making every word sound important. By decree of the Galactic Empire, the Herald announced, and under authority of the High Throne, a state of formal war is hereby declared against the unified worlds of Earth. A ripple of reaction moved through the chamber. Some envoys stiffened. Others whispered urgently into translators or data slates. A few species leaned back, satisfied, as if they had expected this outcome all along. Alex did not move. The Herald continued, listing reasons that sounded precise but hollow. Human expansion into disputed regions. Refusal to submit to imperial oversight. Independent military development. Each charge was delivered with perfect rhythm, as though the decision had been made long before the words were spoken. Across the hall, a tall avian envoy clicked its beak in approval. Nearby, a cluster of reptilian diplomats shared a low, pleased hiss. The Empire had finally decided to remove a growing inconvenience. When the declaration ended, the Herald turned its faceted gaze toward the human table. "The envoy of Earth may respond," it said. All eyes shifted to Alex. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched just enough to make some observers uncomfortable. Then Alex reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. It was not a hologram, not a data slate. It was thin, slightly worn, and printed with ink. A newspaper. Alex unfolded it with care and glanced down, scanning a headline. He smiled, small and calm, as if he had just read something mildly interesting rather than heard a declaration of war. The reaction was immediate. Several envoys leaned forward, confused. One of the junior Imperial aides tilted its head, processing the image again to confirm it was real. A murmur spread through the chamber, growing louder with every second. The avian envoy let out a sharp sound of disbelief. "Is that a cultural artifact?" It asked no one in particular. Alex continued reading for a few seconds. Then he looked up. "Apologies," he said, his voice clear but unforced. "I didn't want to miss the morning news." The council erupted in noise. Translators struggled to keep up as dozens of languages overlapped. To many species, the idea of reading something trivial at such a moment was not just strange, it was insulting. The Imperial Herald raised one long arm, and the sound dropped away. "You have been informed of war," the Herald said. "Your response is expected to reflect the gravity of this situation." Alex folded the newspaper and held it loosely in one hand. "I understand the gravity," he replied. "I just don't think panic helps anyone." From the human delegation's private channel, Maya Brooks watched the feed with a tight smile. She had worked with Alex for years and knew this was not an act. This was simply how he operated. Calm was not something he performed. It was something he trusted. Back in the chamber, Alex set the newspaper on the table in front of him. "This," he said, tapping it lightly, "is from Earth. It was printed this morning." The Herald did not respond, but its sensors focused on the paper. "It talks about a factory opening in Ohio," Alex continued. "There's a story about a local election. A weather report. A sports section I don't care about." He paused, letting the words settle. "Life is still going on," he said. "That matters." Several envoys exchanged uncertain looks. War, to them, meant emergency rule, total control, and fear enforced from the top down. The idea that civilians might continue their daily routines felt wrong. The Herald's tone sharpened. "You believe this demonstrates strength?" Alex shrugged slightly. "I believe it demonstrates perspective." He looked around the hall, meeting alien eyes without challenge or submission. "You announced war," he said. "That's your choice. But on Earth, people still wake up, go to work, argue about the news, and complain about the weather. They don't stop being human just because someone far away made a threat." The silence returned, heavier this time. From a distant balcony, an Imperial strategist observed the scene with growing irritation. The human was not reacting correctly. There was no anger, no fear, no desperate attempt to negotiate. Alex picked up the newspaper again and folded it neatly. "Earth will respond through the proper channels," he said. "As we always do." He inclined his head politely toward the Herald. "But for now," he added, "I think we're done here." He turned and walked away from the table, the paper tucked under his arm. Behind him, the Galactic Council sat in uneasy silence, watching a human envoy leave the chamber as if nothing important had happened at all. And for the first time since the Empire announced its intent to crush Earth, a quiet, uncomfortable thought spread among the observers. Maybe they had misunderstood humans. Alex Carter left the council hall without looking back. The doors closed behind him with a deep, smooth sound that echoed through the station. Outside, the corridor was wide and quiet, lit by soft white panels that followed the curve of the structure. A few guards from neutral species stood at a distance, unsure whether they should treat the human envoy as a guest or as a future enemy. Alex walked at an easy pace. His breathing was steady. Anyone watching him closely might notice the tension in his shoulders, but his face remained calm. The smile from the chamber was gone, replaced by a neutral expression shaped by years of careful control. As soon as he reached the private transit room, the door sealed behind him. A blue light flickered, and the human communication channel opened. Maya Brooks appeared first, her image sharp and clear. She leaned forward, eyes alert. "That went better than expected," she said. Alex exhaled slowly. "They're angry," he replied. "But they're also confused. That matters." Ethan Cole's image joined the channel. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes from too many long nights. "You really brought a paper," Ethan said. "Half the council thinks it was a provocation." Alex shook his head. "No. It was honesty." On Earth, the sun was rising over several continents at once. In cities large and small, people moved through their mornings without knowing the details of what had just happened light years away. In a small apartment, a woman named Lisa poured coffee while listening to the radio. The host talked about traffic delays and a local vote planned for the weekend. At the very end of the broadcast, there was a short mention of rising tension with the Galactic Empire. Lisa frowned, then turned the volume down and left for work. Across the ocean, a factory floor came alive with motion. Machines hummed, lights blinked, and workers checked screens and tools. A man named Ryan glanced at a news feed during his break. He read the word war, felt a brief knot in his chest, then returned to his station when the timer ended. Life continued. Back on the neutral station, news of Alex's reaction spread quickly. Alien envoys gathered in private groups, replaying the moment again and again. The image of the human reading a newspaper became the focus of heated debate. "He mocked us," said one insect-like diplomat. "He dismissed the Empire," said another. An older envoy from a trade species watched the footage in silence. "Or," she said slowly, "he showed us something we don't understand yet." Within the Imperial command sphere, the mood was less patient. A senior strategist named Carell studied the recordings with narrow eyes. The human envoy did not fit the expected pattern. There had been no plea for mercy, no threats, no emotional display. "Humans rely on symbols," Carell said. "They believe image is power." A junior officer hesitated. "Or they believe routine is power," the officer said quietly. Carell dismissed the comment with a sharp gesture. "Prepare Phase 1 operations. Limited strikes only. We will remind them what fear feels like." Orders moved through Imperial space like cold waves. On a human colony world near the edge of settled space, warning alarms sounded. Civilian ships lifted off in clean, organized lines. There was no screaming, no chaos. People followed drills they had practiced for years. A transport pilot named Ben guided his ship away from the surface with steady hands. His passengers were silent, gripping armrests, watching the planet shrink below them. "They said this might happen," an older woman whispered. Ben nodded. "Yeah, they did." When the first Imperial shots struck empty ground hours later, there were no casualties. On Earth, Alex watched the reports come in from a secure room. He read data the same way he had read the newspaper, carefully and without rush. Losses were minimal. Evacuations were clean. The system was working. Maya stood beside him, arms crossed. "They expected panic," she said. Alex nodded. "That's what most empires expect." He thought of the council chamber again, of the looks on alien faces, of the silence after his words. "They don't understand us yet," he said. "And that's fine." Maya studied him. "You're sure this won't spiral out of control?" Alex looked at the screen showing dozens of comm status indicators. "It will escalate," he said. "War always does." He paused. "But it won't break us." Far away, Imperial fleets moved into position, confident and precise. They believed they were facing a young, divided species that had grown too fast. On Earth, people read the news, argued online, went to work, and made plans for tomorrow. Between those two realities, a quiet truth was taking shape. Humanity was already at war, and it was not afraid. The Galactic Council did not meet again after the announcement. Instead, the station filled with quiet tension. Corridors once used for debate and trade became places of whispered talks and careful looks. Many envoys avoided the human wing entirely, as if war were something that could spread by proximity. Alex Carter remained on the station longer than expected. His schedule was suddenly empty, but his role was not finished. Messages from Earth arrived in steady waves. Each one carried updates, numbers, and comm instructions. There was no panic in the words. Only preparation. Alex read every message slowly. He took notes by hand, a habit that confused many who worked with him. For Alex, writing helped him think. It made problems feel real and manageable. In another part of the station, a group of junior alien diplomats watched recordings of human broadcasts. They expected angry speeches or calls for revenge. Instead, they saw news anchors speaking in calm voices. They saw experts explaining risks and plans in simple terms. They saw humor used to ease fear. One diplomat shook his head. "They should be afraid," he said. Another replied, "Maybe they are. They just don't show it the way we do." On Earth, emergency councils met, but they did not shout. Leaders argued, yes, but the arguments were focused on timing, supply, and protection. No one spoke about surrender. That option was never placed on the table. In a coastal city, a teacher named Daniel stood in front of his class. The students were restless. They had heard their parents talking. They had seen words they did not fully understand. "Are we going to be attacked?" a child asked. Daniel paused, then answered carefully. "There is danger," he said. "But there are also plans. And people working very hard to keep you safe." The class grew quiet. The answer was not perfect, but it was honest. Far from Earth, the Imperial fleet began its movement. Massive ships slid through space in perfect formation. To the Empire, this was a show of strength meant to break morale before real fighting began. Carell watched the fleet from a command chamber filled with floating displays. Each screen showed a different angle, a different system, a different path of advance. "Humans are scattered," Carell said. "They rely on distance and trade routes. We will cut those first." An aide nodded. "Their response has been restrained so far." "They are pretending to be calm," Carell replied. "That will end." The first true engagement came not as a battle, but as a test. An Imperial patrol crossed into human-controlled space, expecting resistance. They found nothing. Stations were empty. Routes were clear. Automated beacons warned them they were entering restricted zones, but no ships appeared. The patrol commander reported back, confused. "There is no defense," he said. "No challenge." Carell frowned. "Advance further." Hours later, the patrol supply drones failed. Navigation signals flickered. Communication lag increased. Still, no human ships appeared. By the time the patrol turned back, Its systems were strained and its fuel reserves lower than planned. Nothing had attacked them, yet the mission felt wrong. On a human logistics hub far away, a small team monitored the results. A woman named Claire adjusted a data stream. "They followed the path we expected," she said. A man beside her nodded. "No shots fired. Just pressure." "That's enough," Claire replied. Back on the station, Alex received the report. He read it once, then again. His face did not change, but his eyes showed focus. "They're probing," Maya said. "Yes," Alex replied. "And they're learning. Is that good or bad?" Alex considered the question. "Both," he said. News of the patrol spread among neutral systems. Some saw it as proof that humans were weak. Others noticed the quiet damage done without visible force. An old traitor species shared records from past wars. Empires expected enemies to meet them head-on. Humans did not. "They move like water," the traitor said. "Around obstacles. Through cracks." On Earth, people adjusted. Emergency drills became routine. Shelves were stocked, not stripped. Workplaces adapted schedules. The news remained serious but steady. A man named Paul watched the evening broadcast with his family. When it ended, his daughter asked if things would be okay. He thought for a moment. "I don't know," he said. "But I know we're not giving up." In space, the Imperial fleet advanced again, this time with heavier forces. Confidence remained high, but something had shifted. Reports showed delays, errors, and small failures that added up. Carell reviewed the data in silence. The humans were not fighting the way the Empire expected. "They are resisting without confronting us," an officer said. Carell clenched his jaw. "Then we will force them to confront us." Back on the station, Alex stood near a viewport, watching distant stars. He held the same newspaper from before, now folded and worn. He did not smile this time. The war had truly begun, not with fire, but with patience. And patience, Alex knew, was something humans had learned very well. The Imperial fleet moved deeper into human space with growing caution. The formations were still precise, but the confidence had thinned. Small problems kept appearing. Fuel deliveries arrived late. Maps disagreed with sensor readings. Orders took longer to reach the front. Carell watched the updates with a tight expression. None of the issues were large by themselves. Together, they slowed everything. "Find the source," he ordered. Analysts searched for sabotage and found none. No explosions. No hacking traces that matched known patterns. The systems simply worked less well than expected. In a quiet control room far away, human teams adjusted parameters and closed routes. They did not celebrate. They checked lists and moved on. A ship named Horizon drifted near a trade lane that no longer mattered. Its crew waited in silence. The captain, a woman named Laura, watched a timer count down. "Hold," she said. The ship stayed dark. When an Imperial scout passed, it saw nothing and continued on. Minutes later, a relay beacon failed behind it. The scout sent a report that arrived late and incomplete. On the neutral station, alien envoys argued about what they were seeing. Some demanded proof of human attacks. Others said the Empire was exaggerating problems to excuse delays. Alex Carter listened to all of it. He attended meetings and spoke little. When he did speak, he asked simple questions. "Are civilians being harmed?" he asked once. The room fell quiet. No one could say yes. On Earth, schedules changed again. Trains ran with new routes. Factories shifted priorities. Hospitals updated plans. People complained, adjusted, and kept going. In a small town, a mechanic named Joe fixed a truck while listening to the news on a speaker. The report talked about trade routes and distant systems. "Sounds messy," Joe said to no one. He tightened a bolt and went back to work. The Empire decided to force a response. A task force was sent to secure a human supply hub. This time, they expected resistance. They found it. Human ships appeared at range, fast and spread out. They did not charge. They moved like schools of fish, turning together, separating, then rejoining. Weapons fired, but only enough to push and distract. When the Empire returned fire, the humans were already gone. An Imperial cruiser took damage to its engines, not enough to destroy it, but enough to slow it. Support ships moved to help, breaking formation. That was when the field changed. Signals dropped. Drones lost contact. The task force pulled back, leaving the hub untouched. Carell slammed a fist onto the console. "They are playing with us," he said. An officer shook his head. "They are shaping us," the officer replied. On Earth, Alex received the battle summary. He read the final line twice. No human losses. He closed his eyes for a moment. "They're learning," Maya said beside him. "Yes," Alex replied. "But they're still thinking like an empire." She frowned. "And we're not." Alex looked at a live feed of city streets and quiet homes. "No," he said. "We're thinking like a system." The Galactic Council called for a limited session. The atmosphere was tense. Several envoys demanded explanations from the Empire. Carell spoke through a proxy. His tone was firm, but defensive. "The humans avoid open battle," the proxy said. "They hide behind complexity." Alex stood to respond. He did not bring the newspaper this time. "We are not hiding," he said. "We are protecting what matters." A murmur passed through the chamber. "You entered our space," Alex continued. "You found it prepared. That should tell you something." An envoy from a small world asked a quiet question. "Will this war spread?" Alex answered without delay. "It will, if it is forced to." After the session, Alex walked alone. He felt the weight of the choices ahead. Calm did not mean easy. It meant controlled. In the Empire, public broadcasts changed tone. Early promises of quick victory were replaced by calls for patience and unity. Citizens listened and grew uneasy. A worker named Ilrek paused a broadcast in a market square. "They said this would be fast," he said. No one answered. Human networks watched the change. Analysts noted rising doubt. "This is where pressure works," Claire said. Back in space, human ships withdrew again, leaving empty lanes and unanswered questions. Imperial commanders argued about next steps. Some wanted full assault. Others warned of overreach. Carell stared at a star map filled with gaps. "Force them to stand," he said. But the humans did not stand still. They adjusted, shifted, and endured. On Earth, the evening news ended as usual. The anchor wished viewers a safe night. Families turned off screens. Lights dimmed. The planet slept. Far away, the war pressed closer. And humanity remained calm. The war entered a strange phase. There were no large battles to point to, no burning worlds shown on public screens. Instead, there were delays, shortages, and quiet failures that spread through Imperial space like a slow illness. Imperial ships waited longer for fuel. Crews worked extra hours to fix systems that should not have broken. Commanders sent reports that felt incomplete, even to themselves. Carell stood in the command chamber and listened. His officers spoke carefully now. Every word was measured. "Supply lines are stretched," one said. "Local allies are hesitant," said another. "They question our control," a third added. Carell felt anger rise, but he kept his voice flat. "Humans are forcing doubt," he said. "That is their real weapon." On Earth, long plans moved forward. These plans were older than the war itself. Some had been written years ago, others generations before. Humans had learned, again and again, that peace never lasted forever. In a secure center beneath layers of rock and steel, teams worked without pause. Screens showed movement, numbers, and calm green indicators. A man named Noah checked a list and crossed off another item. "Phase 5 is stable," he said. A woman beside him nodded. Then moved to the next adjustment. No speeches were made. No flags were raised. The work continued. On the neutral station, Alex Carter met with envoys who now asked different questions. They no longer asked why humans were calm. They asked how. Alex answered simply. "We plan," he said. "And we trust systems more than individuals." One envoy frowned. "Empires are built on strong leaders." Alex nodded. And they fall when those leaders fail. The words stayed with them. In imperial territory, civilians felt the change. Markets had fewer goods. Travel took longer. News channels spoke of external problems and blamed human interference. A shopkeeper named Tarek adjusted prices while listening to a broadcast. The speaker promised victory and strength. Tarek looked at the empty shelf and did not feel convinced. The Empire decided to strike harder. A full assault group was formed, larger than any before. Its goal was clear: force a human fleet into open battle and break the pattern. Human observers saw the build-up early. Data flowed across screens on Earth and beyond. The response was quiet but firm. "Redirect," one voice said. "Delay," said another. Ships moved away from expected paths. Traps were left empty. When the assault group arrived, it found space ready but silent. Sensors showed activity far away, just enough to draw attention. The Imperial commander followed the signal. That was when the cost hit. Supply ships lagged behind. Escorts split off to protect them. Communication fell out of sync. The formation stretched thin. Human ships appeared briefly, striking weak points and vanishing. No single attack mattered. Together, they exhausted the assault group. After days of movement, the Imperial commander requested withdrawal. Karel received the message in silence. "This should not be possible," an officer said. "It is possible," Karel replied. "Because we are still trying to win the wrong way." On Earth, Alex read the report and leaned back in his chair. He felt tired, but not surprised. "They still want a moment," he said to Maya. "A battle they can point to." "And we won't give it to them," she said. Alex nodded. "We don't need moments. We need outcomes." In human cities, life adjusted again. People talked more openly about the war now. There was fear, but it was shared. No one pretended things were easy. A nurse named Helen finished a long shift and sat in silence before driving home. She thought about patience, about space, about things far beyond her reach. Then she started the engine and went on. The Galactic Council received reports from dozens of systems. Trade slowed. Confidence dropped. Neutral worlds worried about being pulled into a long conflict. Some envoys began to question the Empire's choices. Alex noticed the shift. He did not push. He waited. In Imperial space, public trust weakened. People asked why victory was taking so long. Why humans still stood. Karel watched internal reports late into the cycle. He saw a pattern he did not like. "They endure," he said quietly. On Earth, the same thought appeared in many places, though spoken differently. "We're holding," someone said. And they were. The war had not exploded into fire and ruin. It had become a test of patience, planning, and belief. Humanity had trained for this kind of test. The Empire had not. The pressure finally reached a breaking point inside the Empire. What had begun as quiet doubt grew into open argument. Commanders blamed supply officers. Supply officers blamed planners. Planners blamed human interference, but the explanation no longer satisfied everyone. Karel stood before a group of senior leaders. Their faces showed strain. Victory was no longer assumed. It had to be explained. "We must end this phase," one leader said. "The longer it continues, the weaker we appear." Karel agreed. "Then we force a decision," he said. "We choose a place they cannot ignore." The target was not a fleet or a base. It was a world. A human colony, small but important. Not heavily defended. Rich in industry. Close enough to matter, far enough to risk. The order was sent. On Earth, warning lights appeared on multiple screens. The signals were clear this time. There was no confusion, no guesswork. "They're committing," Maya said. Alex Carter looked at the data and nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "They think this will force us into a stand." "And will it?" Alex paused. "It will force a response," he said. "Not the one they expect." Across human space, plans shifted. Ships changed course. Civilian transports launched early. Defense grids activated but stayed quiet. On the colony world, People followed drills they knew well. Sirens sounded, not sharp but steady. There was fear, but it was controlled. A man named Eric helped guide families onto transports. He kept his voice calm even when his hands shook. "We've done this before," he said. "Just follow the lights." Above the planet, the sky darkened with distant shapes. Imperial ships arrived in strength. They formed a wide arc and began their approach. No human fleet stood to meet them. The Imperial commander felt a brief surge of confidence. "Begin pressure," he ordered. Shots struck orbital platforms. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to send a message. Then space changed. Human ships appeared from unexpected angles. Not in a single group, but many. They moved fast, striking at edges and pulling back. Defense grids flared, not to block fire, but to shape movement. Imperial ships found their paths narrowed. Communication lag returned. The commander frowned. "Push through," he said. Fuel warnings appeared. Behind the scenes, human systems worked. Routes closed. Reserves shifted. Timers counted down. On Earth, Alex watched it all. His face was calm, but his fingers tapped lightly on the table. "They're overextended," he said. Maya nodded. "They can't stay long." Above the colony, an Imperial cruiser slowed. Escorts moved to protect it. That movement opened a gap. Human ships struck once, clean and precise. The cruiser lost power and drifted. The Imperial commander ordered retreat. The message took too long to reach every unit. By the time the fleet pulled back, the damage was done. The colony still stood. Human losses were light. Imperial confidence was shaken. On the colony world, transports returned. People stepped back onto solid ground. Some cried. Some laughed from relief. Eric sat on the ground and let himself breathe. In the Empire, the failure could not be hidden. Too many had watched. Too many had expected a clear victory. Public channels filled with questions. Carell reviewed the outcome alone. He did not rage. He felt something colder. "They did not defend the world," he said quietly. "They defended the time." On the neutral station, envoys gathered again. The tone was different now. The Empire was no longer the unquestioned force in the room. Alex spoke when asked. "We will protect our people," he said. "But we will not be rushed into destruction." An envoy asked, "How long can you keep this up?" Alex answered honestly, "As long as it takes." On Earth, the news showed images of returning transports and quiet streets. The anchor spoke plainly. "We held," she said. People listened. Some felt pride. Others felt worry. Most felt both. The war had crossed a line. It was no longer distant. It had touched lives directly. But it had also shown something important. Humanity could bend without breaking. And the Empire was beginning to understand that bending did not mean weakness. The failure at the colony changed the shape of the war. It was no longer a distant contest of fleets and numbers. It became a question asked in quiet places across many worlds. If the Empire could not break humans there, where could it break them at all? Inside Imperial space, conversations shifted. Officers spoke more carefully. Civilians listened more closely to news that once felt certain. A transport worker named Cell watched a delayed shipment unload at a station. The crates were fewer than promised. The schedule was wrong. "This didn't happen before," Cell said to a coworker. The coworker shrugged. "They say it's temporary." Cell did not look convinced. Carell received reports from internal monitors. Productivity down. Trust slipping. The war was no longer only at the edges. It was moving inward. "They are attacking belief," he said during a closed meeting. One leader replied, "Belief cannot be defended with fleets." Carell had no answer. On Earth, analysts studied Imperial reactions. They saw patterns form and break. Doubt spread faster than fear. "This is the phase they never trained for," Claire said. Alex Carter read her report and nodded. "Because it's not a phase you can command," he said. Human media continued its careful balance. The war was reported honestly, without drama. Failures were named. Successes were explained, not praised. A talk show host asked a simple question. "Why don't we strike harder?" The guest answered, "Because winning is not the same as ending." On a human ship far from Earth, a young officer named Sam reviewed patrol routes. The work was slow and quiet. "Feels strange," Sam said. "No big battles." The captain replied, "That's the point." In the Empire, a new order was issued. Civilian channels were restricted. News became sharper, louder, more certain. The change was noticed immediately. A teacher named Rill paused a lesson when the broadcast tone shifted. "They're trying too hard," Rill said softly. Students watched, uneasy. The Galactic Council convened again, this time with tension in every voice. Neutral worlds feared trade collapse. Smaller powers feared being pulled apart. Alex spoke calmly. "This war does not need to expand," he said. "It only needs to stop." An envoy asked the question many were thinking. "Will humans push until the Empire falls?" Alex answered carefully. "We are not here to rule others. We are here to survive." The words carried weight. Behind closed doors, some envoys began quiet talks. Not alliances, not yet. Conversations. In Imperial Command, Carell watched reports of these talks with growing concern. "They are isolating us," he said. An aide responded, "We isolated ourselves when we chose force." Carell dismissed the aide, but the words stayed. The Empire attempted a new tactic. Not force, but display. A massive fleet assembled near a neutral system. The message was clear. This is power. Human observers watched. They measured fuel flow, crew rotation, and timing. "They can't hold that formation long," Noah said. Alex agreed. "And everyone knows it." Neutral cameras broadcast the fleet across the galaxy. The size impressed many. The cost impressed others. In a market on a distant world, a trader named V.S. shook her head. "All that," she said, "just to stand still." Days passed. The fleet remained. Supplies drained. Then the formation loosened. Human ships did not attack. They did nothing at all. The Empire withdrew quietly. The message was received. On Earth, people watched the news and felt something new. Not relief. Confidence. A bus driver named Mark listened as passengers talked. "They didn't fight," one said. "They didn't need to," another replied. The war was reshaping how others saw humanity. Not as loud conquerors. Not as helpless victims. But as something patient. In the Empire, protests appeared for the first time. Small. Quickly dispersed. But recorded. Carell watched the footage late into the cycle. "This is slipping," he said. He finally understood what Alex had meant. Humans were not trying to win a battle. They were letting the Empire lose its reason to fight. Imperial fleets moved slowly through space, weighed down not by humans, but by their own plans. Supplies were late, crews grew tired, and decisions took longer. Every delay seemed small, but they added up. Carell sat alone in the command room. Screens showed numbers, positions, and reports. All were within expectations, yet the results were wrong. The humans were not fighting as predicted, but the Empire was still losing. "They are winning without battle," an aide whispered. Carell did not respond. He knew the truth, but admitting it changed nothing. On Earth, Alex Carter read updates from the colony and beyond. Civilians moved in quiet order. Factories produced. Communications stayed open. Nothing flashy, nothing sudden. "They are watching us," Maya said. "Yes," Alex replied. "But that is their problem." In the Empire, doubts grew louder. Civilians began asking why the war was not over. Soldiers questioned orders. Analysts tried to find fault, but the humans remained calm. Reports of minor skirmishes arrived. Each was brief, precise, and caused minimal loss. Human pilots avoided heavy fights. They struck weak points and vanished. Nothing slowed the humans permanently, yet everything slowed the Empire. A young officer, Ilmer, looked at the map. "We have the ships. We have the firepower. Why can't we win?" His commander sighed. They are not fighting the way we expect. That is all. On Earth, news channels spoke carefully. Human life continued. People argued about small things, traffic, work, elections. The war was not ignored, but it did not dominate life. A factory worker named Liza adjusted a machine and hummed a song. Her co-worker looked up. "Do you think they'll reach us soon?" Liza shrugged. "We'll be ready. We always are." Above a minor trade route, a small fleet of humans intercepted an Imperial scouting group. They did not engage fully. They pushed and pulled, distracted and confused the enemy. Imperial ships lost formation. Communication lagged. Supplies ran low. The commander called back to the main fleet. "They are everywhere, but nowhere. I cannot hold them." On a neutral station, envoys discussed the war in private rooms. What was meant to be a warning about human weakness now seemed a warning about the Empire itself. Humans were careful, patient, and adaptable. Alex attended one of these discussions. He spoke calmly. "We are not trying to destroy anyone," he said. "We are only trying to survive and protect our own." An envoy asked quietly, "How long can you keep this up?" "As long as needed," Alex answered. Back in the Empire, Carell studied the records late into the cycle. Protests appeared quietly. People questioned orders. Officials complained. Nothing was loud enough to stop the war, but everything was growing fragile. "They are not just fighting ships," Carell said. "They are fighting belief." Small errors became large because the Empire had to maintain appearances. Communications scrambled. Supply routes broke. Minor mistakes caused delays in major operations. On Earth, people continued life normally. Children went to school. Workers went to factories. Farmers harvested crops. Each small act maintained the larger system. A teacher named and watched her students leave. She thought about the humans far away in space and the humans at home. Both acted in quiet, deliberate ways. "They don't need battles to win," she said softly. Imperial officers began to argue openly. Some wanted to retreat. Some wanted to strike harder. The hesitation spread. Decisions came slower. Confidence dropped. A scout ship returned with a damaged sensor array. No humans attacked. The damage came from miscalculation and miscommunication. Back on Earth, Alex reviewed data. No one celebrated. There were no speeches. Only understanding. "They adapt," he said. "They never panic." Maya nodded. "And they are always ready." A small human fleet moved to intercept another Imperial patrol. The encounter lasted hours. No major shots were fired. Supplies were lost. Imperial coordination broke down. The Empire was learning a new lesson. Humans did not need to fight to win. Their presence, their planning, their calm response, and their endurance were stronger than fleets and weapons. In cities across human space, people returned home after work. Children played. News reported the war accurately, calmly. No one exaggerated fear. Alex looked at the stars from a quiet observation deck. The humans in the ships, on colonies, and on Earth were connected by more than orders. They were connected by systems, trust, and patience. The Empire was not broken, but it was beginning to see its limits. Humans were not loud. Humans did not need to be. They endured, waited, and adjusted. And that was enough to change the war. The Galactic Council called for another meeting. This time, the tone was different. No one spoke of human weakness. Everyone whispered about the Empire's difficulties and how the humans managed to avoid direct confrontation while still winning small victories. Alex Carter entered the chamber quietly. His face was calm, his steps measured. Alien envoys turned their attention to him, curious. They had heard reports, seen the data, and now they wanted to hear words from the human envoy. "Humans survive through planning," Alex said. "We do not rely on luck or force alone. Our strength comes from coordination and care for each other." Some envoys nodded. Others remained skeptical. The Empire sat rigid, uncomfortable. A reptilian delegate asked, "Is it true you have lost no lives in these operations?" Alex shook his head. "We have lost some, but far fewer than expected. We learn from every loss and improve. In the Empire, Carell listened to the broadcast of the Council. His face was tight. He had underestimated humans. The mistakes of his fleet, the failures in coordination, the protests in civilian space, all were signs that the humans were controlling the pace of the war without firing many shots. On Earth, analysts reviewed data from across human space. Reports from colonies, ships, and cities were clear. Humans had not only survived, they had shaped the Empire's movements and decisions. They adjust faster than the Empire expects, Noah said. Every delay, every misstep, we adapt and use it. Maya added, and no one panics. They follow plans, not impulses. Alex nodded. That is why they cannot break us. In a minor system near human space, a small group of Imperial ships tried to pressure a colony. They expected resistance, but the colony's defenses were careful, not aggressive. Human ships appeared at the edges, striking weak points and disappearing. Supplies were diverted, crews exhausted, and the mission failed to achieve more than temporary disruption. The Imperial commander reported back. They are everywhere, yet nowhere. Nothing we do sticks. Carell frowned. They are not fighting to win battles. They are shaping the entire conflict. On a human transport ship, Captain Sam monitored patrol routes. The crew was calm. They adjusted schedules, rerouted supplies, and ensured civilians were safe. No one panicked. No one rushed. We do what must be done, Sam said. No more, no less. In cities across human space, civilians continued life as normal. Children went to school, workers returned home, and communities organized quietly. The media reported facts clearly. People understood the war was real, but not unstoppable. On the neutral station, envoys discussed the council meeting. They realized the humans were not just surviving, they were directing the flow of events. They forced the Empire to make mistakes, one said. They do not fight openly, but they win through patience. Another added, it is as if the humans are controlling the war without firing weapons. Alex did not argue. He only observed. Planning, patience, and calm execution were their most powerful tools. Back in the Empire, the High Command argued. Some leaders suggested a full retreat, others demanded a larger offensive. Every decision slowed because the humans were forcing the Empire to reconsider its approach. Carell realized that the humans' greatest strength was their system. They did not act from emotion or pride. They acted from planning and coordination. Every minor victory for the humans became a major failure for the Empire. A small strike group of humans intercepted an Imperial convoy. The encounter lasted only hours. Supplies were lost. Imperial formation broke. Human losses were minimal. The convoy was forced to withdraw. Nothing had been dramatic, but the impact was clear. Alex received reports and noted each one. He made small adjustments, rerouted ships, and ensured civilians were safe. He never celebrated. He did not need to. The system was working. In the Galactic Council chamber, envoys whispered among themselves. The humans were not aggressive conquerors, nor were they afraid. They were steady, patient, and connected. They had turned the Empire's strength into weakness without ever meeting it head-on. Alex stood and spoke one final time. We protect our people. We follow our plans. That is all. We do not seek glory, only survival. That is why we endure. The Empire had no immediate response. The message was clear and undeniable. Humans had turned the war into something the Empire could not control. On Earth, citizens continued life. Factories ran, schools opened, markets worked. Humans had not only survived, they had shown the galaxy what careful planning, coordination, and patience could do. The war had changed. It was no longer only about ships or weapons. It was about systems, endurance, and belief. And humanity had become the quiet master of it all. The Empire moved cautiously now. Every fleet was measured, every step considered. Commanders checked reports 3 times before making orders. The humans had forced patience, and the Empire was beginning to feel its limits. Alex Carter observed the patterns from the observation deck of a station near human space. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He only watched numbers, movements, and human readiness. Maya Brooks joined him. "They are slower than before," she said. Alex nodded. "They must be. They are thinking too much about us now." On Earth, people continued life. Factories ran, schools opened, markets worked. Civilians carried on with routines. Even as news spread about distant fleets, humans acted as if life was normal. That quiet strength became the backbone of the system. In space, human fleets moved strategically. They avoided large battles. They disrupted supply lines. They shaped enemy decisions. Every move was measured. Every response was deliberate. A small human ship named Pathfinder intercepted an Imperial scouting vessel. They did not fire to destroy. They fired to confuse, delay, and mislead. The scout returned a broken report. Supplies were off schedule. Crews were tired. The formation had gaps. The Imperial commander called a meeting. "They fight without fighting," he said. "Every decision we make seems wrong." Carell listened to the updates. He knew the humans were not reckless. They were not lucky. They were steady. Each small action had an effect larger than the Empire expected. In a neutral council chamber, envoys discussed the pattern. They realized the humans were not only surviving, they were leading without confrontation. They forced others to react, shaping every event. Alex addressed the council. "We do not seek to conquer. We do not seek glory. We protect our people, plan carefully, and act only when necessary. That is why we endure." Whispers passed through the room. The Empire had strength, but the humans had patience and preparation. That was more powerful. On a colony world, civilians prepared for minor attacks. They followed drills, used evacuation routes, and remained calm. Families moved with care, factories adjusted schedules, and communication networks stayed open. Every action was small, but together they maintained the system. A woman named Sarah guided children through a drill. "Stay calm. Follow instructions," she said. A man named Ben monitored a transport route. "Everything is working," he said quietly. Above them, Imperial ships fired warning shots. Nothing significant hit the ground. The humans did not retaliate immediately. They waited. They watched. Each pause frustrated the Empire. They wanted immediate results. Humans gave patience instead. Carell reviewed the reports late into the cycle. He realized the truth. Humans had not only defended themselves, they had shown a new way to win. Control over systems, endurance, and patience were stronger than fleets and weapons. Alex watched the stars from his station. He thought of ships, colonies, civilians, and factories. All were parts of a system. None relied on luck. None relied on fear. Maya joined him. "It is over, isn't it?" she asked. Alex looked at her. "It's not over," he said. "It will never be over. But we have shown what humans can do." Across the galaxy, reports reached neutral worlds. The Empire was still powerful, but its confidence had cracked. The humans had survived every challenge, controlled the pace, and forced the enemy to act on their terms. In cities on Earth, people returned home after work. Children played. Families ate together. The war was far, but its lessons were clear. Calm, planning, and care were more powerful than panic and force. A man named Daniel walked his child home. "We have survived," he said. The child looked up. "Did we win?" Daniel smiled softly. "We are still here. That is the victory." In space, human fleets adjusted positions without noise or celebration. Ships maintained supply lines, civilian transports moved safely, and colonies prepared quietly for any threat. The Empire moved slower, questioning, hesitant. Alex observed all of it. Humans had not fought to dominate. They had fought to endure, to protect, and to control what mattered. The Empire had strength, but humans had systems. They had patience. They had coordination. And in the quiet, steady way humans acted, the galaxy understood that sometimes the strongest power was not in weapons or fleets, but in planning, endurance, and calm. And humanity smiled, reading its morning news, as the galaxy watched, unsure of what to do next.